All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Empowering Communication Workshop. This is module one, number one, and this is about removing your mask. I'll go further into that later on, but just for tonight, welcome, and we're going to spend the next 12 weeks together going through a series of modules that will help you to be able to communicate from a place of authenticity by the end of 12 weeks. What do I mean by that? Well, you'll find out a little bit more about that later on. But just so you know, we are going to work on your communication style and how you communicate to other people, but also break down the barriers that stop you from communicating from a place of authenticity and honesty. The mask is that thing that you put on, figuratively speaking, when you're communicating to others, because there's a fear there that you might hurt someone or they might take it the wrong way. I'm going to show you how that you don't have to put that on anymore, because it is really not your problem. It is not something that you have to be worried about as to how you communicate to others, unless you're being totally rude, of course. But it is actually what's going on for the other person that makes them react to the way you communicate. So yeah, today is really about removing that mask for good. So just where we can get onto it, a little bit about myself. I am the founder of the Skills for Life Academy, and what we do is we help people play an awesome second half. So that's people that have hit the age of 50, not happy with their first half of life, play an awesome second half. But we also help people at the opposite end of the spectrum, and that's people that are aged between 17 to 24. Sorry, it's the first time I've run this program through this one. We also help people through the age of 17 to 24 that get them prepared for life. So that's going to help them play an awesome first half. And that way I don't have to coach them when they get older to play an awesome second half. So it's a new program that we've designed, and it's called the Emerging Leaders Program. But I wasn't always this confident when I was in front of people, communicating to people. Quite weird, really, because I was a hospitality person. I was a restaurant manager. But to think I was actually quite shy. I was actually an introvert. And I could communicate on a normal level to everyday kind of communication. But when it came to sort of confronting conversations, or conversations that I thought were going to be confrontational, I really struggled. And I really, really struggled to have conversations where I thought they were going to be difficult, or communicate to people at a higher level. And what I realized was, because of my hospitality training, the customer's always right. So I took that through into my personal life as well, and thought, well, everybody must be right. The customer and anyone in front of me must be right. So therefore, I always had to communicate from a place of pleasing others, which is a little bit scary, really, because I spent my life lying to people, and it wasn't actually how I felt. And I would communicate from a place of inauthenticity, and I wasn't being congruent to who I was, until I learned the secret about empowering communication. And we're going to go through that secret over the next 12 weeks, and you'll get to learn a little bit more about how and why you communicate the way you do, so that you can actually help yourself to fix that or change it if you want. Don't have to, but you can change it to a place that you are communicating from a place of authenticity. You are only doing the stuff you love doing, and you're able to communicate that to other people so that you're not lying to people. So you're probably wondering over the next 12 weeks exactly what that might look like. One of the biggest things that came up for me was learning NLP. And there's some meta programs that run inside all of us. There's about 51 in total, but there's 5 or 6 that are probably dominant within us. And I'll go through some of the more dominant ones. Sorry, I just have to keep checking because there's a few people asking for the link. Sorry about that. And so, because I'm running it all on my own, so sorry about that. Feel free to chat as well. Put stuff in the chat and introduce yourself, say hello. So yeah, NLP meta programs were things that ran inside us. We'll learn a little bit more about them over the next couple of weeks, next week actually. And then we're going to learn the following, also about DISC profiles and behavioral profiles and why people behave the way they do. The other thing we're going to learn about is what triggers you. What are the things that really trigger you to be angry, sad, frustrated, whatever it might be, to then help you understand why you communicate to things in different ways. The next thing we're going to cover off is knocking down your barriers. So we're going to understand what it is that stops you from doing things. So we're going to really break those down and have a look at why you might be doing some of the things that you do. The next one we're going to look at is creating boundaries. So one of the things we as humans don't do is we do stuff that we don't want to do, but yet we do it anyway just to keep people happy. And so when we create boundaries and we communicate those boundaries to other people, be it the people that are close to us in our lives or just the people outside of our lives, it actually helps us to be free, because now people know our boundaries and they don't tend to cross them, and we can stick to those. We're going to increase your self-confidence and your self-esteem. Now, if you're not confident and you've got no self-esteem, it's going to be very hard for you to keep going and communicate authentically if you've got low self-esteem and low self-confidence. We're going to connect with your authenticity. So we're going to find out who you really are, and we're going to make sure that you're able to communicate that to other people. We're also going to reconnect with that inner child, that child within you that could achieve anything in life, that wasn't afraid to do anything, and would also say anything that came to their mind. You remember when you're a kid and you see your parents going, whoa, I can't believe you just said that. That was because you had no fear. You had no worry about upsetting anyone. We're going to then tame your inner voice. It's that inner critic that you've got that keeps telling you you're not good at something. You're bad at something. It's an affirmation that you keep telling yourself, because you are your biggest critic. Most people out there are probably not thinking half the things that you're thinking, but you're thinking them anyway and telling yourself that. Then we're going to increase your self-awareness. We're going to discover who you actually are. We're going to make you aware of who you are and how you communicate and present yourself to the outside world. How to ask great questions. How many people do you communicate to on a daily basis that just don't even listen to you? They just talk over you, or they talk at you. They're not even interested in what you have to say. And generally that's because people are trying to work out what's the next thing. They've heard something that you've communicated, and they're now going, oh, I can tell them about that. I've got to tell them about that. And they've actually switched off to what you're talking about. And then we'll wrap it up, and we'll make sure that you've got lots of learning and lots of implementation to do for the next year, lifetime, whatever it might be. All right, let's kick into it. All right, so is there any questions so far? Because please pop them in the chat if you do. All right, so you remember that time when you're a baby? You probably don't remember. But I just want you to know that from the time you're born, you're educated to be a version of yourself that pleases others. Remember when you were crying, right? Your mum would come and do anything to try and stop you crying. And then you got older. So up to the age of 7, you're starting to cement in all of your beliefs, your values, everything that becomes about you. And that's done by the people that are around you. The people that are the direct, in your direct sphere are the people that you mirror your behavior on. So now up to the age of 7, you're locking in all of that stuff, your values, your beliefs, how are you going to behave, how are you going to communicate? And that's how you go through life. And because that's sort of ingrained in you, now you start stacking on top of that. So anyone else that you meet that sort of emulates the same thing, you go, yeah, well, that's how it should be. That's how it should be. And you're always trying to battle that. And before you understand how to communicate, it's really important that you understand who you are, who we are, before we can communicate that to others. And we've got to know who we are and what our boundaries are, what our values are, what our beliefs are, so that when we're communicating to others, we communicate from a place of authenticity. And you'll notice that if somebody says something that goes against your values or your beliefs, it's very hard for you to agree with that person or actually to get on with that person. And these are things that we kind of think are true, but maybe they're not true. And they can be changed over time, because beliefs and values are a bit different, but beliefs are just thoughts. So we can change our beliefs over time. Talk about affirmations. Affirmations are the things that we tell ourselves every day. I mean, how many times have you said, I'm not good at that. I'm terrible at that. I'm useless at that. That's an affirmation that you're telling yourself that you're not good at something. So you'll never be good at it. You'll never become better at it, because you're telling yourself all of the time you're not good at it. What about if you just told yourself, I'm learning how to be better at that? I'm learning how to do that. What about, on the other hand, when you speak to somebody and you ask them how they are and they say, I'm not bad? Well, if you're not bad, what are you? You're good. So why not just say good? Because your brain doesn't recognize the negative. It just hears, I'm bad. And then once you know who you are, you're actually able to communicate with others from a much better perspective. Have a look at this couple in the bottom. They don't look too happy with each other. There's something going on there, whether they're in a work scenario, they're in a relationship, but they're not happy. Look at the body language. You can never not be communicating. You just have to look at the body language there. It's so closed and angry or frustrated or whatever it is. It's not happy. All right. So very important to realize that you have to know who you are before you can communicate to others from a place of authenticity. All right. Okay. So like I said earlier, you are always communicating. Good or bad, you are always communicating. So if you've got any examples of communication, of people communicating in a situation where you don't actually believe them, please pop them in the chat. But most of the time, we are communicating in life from a place of authenticity. You have a look at this. There's a lot of social media on here. And most people are always posting happy snaps. How often do you see somebody posting a snap where they're miserable on holiday? Doesn't really happen. So, and we get this perception in our head that that person's life must be amazing. And sometimes it might not be the case. One of the things is we do as humans is we're constantly telling people lies. We're always telling people lies because we either don't want to hurt them, we don't want to upset them, or we just don't really want to do what they're saying, but we say that we do because we just want to keep them happy. We're people pleasers. And so sometimes we now are not keeping ourselves happy because we want to keep the other person happy. And now we're from a place of inauthenticity. And think about this as an example. How do you feel when somebody lies to you? When somebody close to you lies to you, how do you feel? Well, you're not happy with that person generally. You're pretty bloody upset with them, to be honest. Imagine if your kids are starting to lie to you, get really upset with them. But we do that on a daily basis and think it's okay because we don't want to communicate and make sure that the other person's unhappy. The other thing is, when we're communicating to somebody, we want to keep them happy, but we don't keep ourselves happy. And so therefore we're being inauthentic to who we are. Imagine this, right? You ask somebody if they want to do something with you and they go, yeah, absolutely, I do want to do that. Yeah, I'd love to. You can see what's happening. They're saying, yes, they do want to do it, but my head's going no. And behavior is always the highest form of communication. It never lies. I guarantee you, it never lies. So you watch from future, you'll pick it up that people are communicating to you and saying, yes, I'd absolutely love to do that. But they're lying to you because their head's going no. Most of the time, we don't communicate authentically because it's from a place of fear. Now, fear is an acronym for future expectation appearing real. It's not real yet. It hasn't happened. It's only something that we're telling ourselves is going to happen. I can't tell you how many people I coach on a daily basis that tell me I have a fear around the conversation. Oh, it's going to be a confrontation. I'm going to have a conversation. It's going to be a confrontation, or it's going to be a difficult conversation. No, it's not. It's going to be a conversation. And whether it turns difficult or confrontational, well, that's up to you and up to the person that you're communicating with. And how does that work? And that's just something we're making up in our head because for whatever's going on for us. We then think when we communicate, the person's not going to agree with us, and therefore it's going to be a confrontation. And I want to give you this example so you can have this when you're having an argument with somebody, right? Arguments should never exist because it's just two people with two differing opinions. That's all it is. And so if you imagine two gorillas in the bush, and they come against each other, and all of a sudden they stand up and they start beating their chest and beating their chest. And then the other one beats his chest louder and yells louder. And the other one beats his chest and yells louder and louder. And what it comes down to is that the gorilla that seems the most aggressive one will be the one that generally wins. And the other gorilla will just hop away into the bush. But nothing has been solved from that. because the gorilla who wins thinks I won. Yay. The gorilla who hopped away into the bush thinks, what a dickhead. I don't agree with that. So the problem hasn't been solved and it's still there. So next time they meet, they're probably going to have the same thing. So the problem's never been solved. So when somebody gets really aggressive, just sit there and let them vent. Let them get it off their system and then just ask if they've finished yet. Then if they haven't, just keep letting them finish and go from there. So important. It's not an argument. Remember, it's a conversation. All right. So you can see this person here. What's happening for here? This person's probably reflecting on their past. All right. And the past is what has a lot to do with how we communicate to others. It's those stories we've got in our head, our values, our belief have come all from our past. And that's what now affects how we communicate to others. And why are we not honest? So we've got to get, and what it's so important that over the next 12 weeks, you learn how to become honest with people. It's really not your fault how the other person takes your communication. It's whatever's going on for them is how they communicate back to you. Has anyone got any examples of how your past has affected how you communicate to others? All right. One of the other things you're going to have to really get into is to commit to yourself. You're going to have to commit to getting in and working on yourself to really figure this stuff out. Because if you don't commit to it, well, it's pointless. It's pointless turning up for the next 11 weeks because you're not going to get anything out of it. And you're just going to be like, oh, that was stupid. That course was terrible. You've really got to commit to actually being authentic with yourself. You've got to become vulnerable. You really have to become vulnerable in situations to understand who you are and what you do. You've really got to get in and explore yourself so that you can be aware of your behaviors. And you've got to be honest with yourself. It comes back to honesty all of the time. Get really curious. Get really curious as to why you behave the way you do. Get curious as to why the other person might behave the way you are, why they behave to how you communicate. Think about this, right? Communication is the response you get. So if you communicate to somebody, and they respond in a way that you go, oh, that's a bit harsh. Well, perhaps it's how you've said something. I know it's not it's not what your problem, but it is. Communication is the response you're going to get. So if you communicate in a way, then the response you're getting, so if they get really angry and they cross their arms, well, there's probably something you've said that's triggered something in them, not necessarily what you've said. So with commitment, vulnerability, and curiosity, you're going to be able to be the best version of yourself and remove this mask that you've been wearing for good. Take it off. Get rid of it. A mask is something we put on to mask who we actually are because we want to keep other people happy. It's not who we truly are. So it's so important that you understand that we've got to take that mask off for good. Have a look at these two pictures now. Look at this guy. And then have a look at the next picture. And what is the difference? Can anyone tell me? Let's do it again. Have a look. What can you tell from this person? What can you tell from just looking at this picture? Picture number one compared to picture number two. What I can tell you is picture number one, he seems a lot happier than picture number two. She seems like she's got a bit more going on. If you look at the corners of her mouth, they're kind of a little bit down. Whereas you look at the corners of this guy's mouth, they're a little bit up. It means he's happier. She's got her hair sort of over the side of her face. It's a little bit of a shadow. So there's probably some shyness there or some insecurity. And so in this course, you're going to have to learn and commit to exploring yourself. Just be honest with yourself. Be honest with your behaviors. Look at these people. Do they look happy? Could that be a social media pic, though, that they're just looking happy because someone's told them to smile? We don't know. We don't know what's going on until we ask, until we communicate with them or ask questions. One of the best questions I ever got asked was, who am I uninterrupted? And I'm not going to tell you who I am probably until the end, but I want you to work it out for yourself, who you are uninterrupted. And what do I mean by that? Well, as we go through life, we kind of assume different identities. When we're a kid, we can do anything. Nothing is a challenge. Anything is possible. Think about when you started to walk. You never thought there was failure because you fell over. You just got back up and tried to do it again and again and again, and eventually you walked. And as we get older, then we start assuming a different identity because we're at school. So now we have to follow along with the school rules. So we now assume the identity of a student and how that should behave. And we might meet a girlfriend. So then we're now, or a boyfriend for that matter, or a girlfriend and a boyfriend. It doesn't matter, whatever that might be. But we now assume the identity as a partner, and kind of sometimes we'll change based on the other person's needs, wants, and desires and expectations. And that can be a little bit detrimental because all of a sudden our identity keeps dying, keeps going away, and we start to forget. And as you get older, then you become an employee. And now you've got to fulfill the expectations of being an employee. And that is like you're guided by the boundaries of the employer. And so you've got the identity as an employee now. And then, okay, so you might go traveling a bit and you come back in and you get footloose and fancy free for a while, go and experiment. And then you come back into being an employee. You might start a business and then you meet a partner and they become your life partner. So you end up getting married. And now you assume the identity of being a partner, a husband, a wife. And now another part of you has gone. And it's just, you are that person. And then you might have kids. And now you assume the identity of being a father, a mother. And you've got to assume that identity. And so all of a sudden, this person that was within you has to have this identity for that, this identity. And we change. We do change as humans. We absolutely do change because, we can't just go around being footloose and fancy free when we've got kids because it's probably not good for the kids, or, it might mean that we're neglecting our responsibilities as parents. And we can't do that at work because we're neglecting our responsibilities of being an employee. So we've got these identities. And now all of a sudden who we are has sort of disappeared a little bit. And then all of a sudden you might hit the age of 50 or you might hit the age of 45 or get old later on in life. And you start going, well, who am I? What have I done? Where am I? Where's that person that I used to be gone? And you start going to discover that person again. And you might, so you've heard men go and buy Harley Davidson. The biggest thing now is people start running marathons or climb Kilimanjaro or get to Everest. And you start doing those things again. And what I've found with coaching men through divorce is that they actually become the person they used to be. And sometimes the person that they're now getting divorced or separated from falls back in love with them because that's that person they fell in love with. So it's really important that we hold on to a fair amount of our identity of who we are. We don't just change to keep other people happy, because here's the thing, you're probably not going to be happy yourself if you're in a relationship where when you're being something that's inauthentic to who you are. Really important you have those boundaries set up so that the other person knows that you are going to be that person. Yeah, when you're not assuming, especially when you're not assuming the role of being a parent. So that's what I mean by uninterrupted. So the uninterrupted person is that person who was that person who went traveling. It was that person who went jumping out of an airplane. It was the person who went surfing and surfed the biggest wave. And I'm not just talking adventure, but just did the things that they wanted to do, going to movies, all that stuff. And so being authentic to yourself it's really not about. So I hate using the negative side of it, but it is not about pleasing others. It is not about just doing stuff to please others. Okay. It's really important you get your head around that. This is being authentic to you, is just doing the stuff that you want to do and being able to communicate to people in a nice way, not rudely, of course, that you don't want to do something because you don't have to. Okay, it's something that they want you to do, but therefore you don't have to do it if you don't want to. And it's really important that you actually start looking at what's the opposite of this. Okay, being authentic to yourself is not about hurting others. So you don't have to necessarily be nasty to somebody just to hurt them. And you're not actually hurting them by saying no. You're actually doing the opposite because you're not lying to them. Because if they found out you were lying, they would probably be much more upset with you than if you just told them the truth. They would get over that a lot quicker. It's not about doing things that you dislike. So you're in a place now where you're broken down who you are. You don't have to go and do stuff you don't want to do just to keep someone else happy. I don't see the point, because you're not going to be happy. And if we're people pleasers, we've got to keep ourselves happy as well. We're even more important in this equation. It's not about forcing yourself to do something. You do not have to force yourself to do something to keep someone else happy. You've got to be authentic to you as to what you want to do, not what other people want you to do. Okay. It's not about being hard on yourself. Like I said earlier, like, you don't have to be your biggest critic to get the best value out of you, to get the best results out of you. You do not have to do that. All right. You just have to be your biggest cheerleader. All right. Be your biggest cheerleader that lifts you up every single day. Stop affirming that you're not good at something. You don't have to judge others and compare yourself to them. All right. So judging others is probably a really bad habit to get into. You're not responsible for who they are. If they're happy with who they are, so what? They are happy. And if you compare yourself to others, that's when you're going to come unstuck, because once again, if you're your biggest critic and now you're comparing yourself to others, well, you're going to be in a lot of trouble and you're actually never going to be happy. So it's really important you don't compare yourself to others. If you're happy with who you are, then be okay with that. Being a victim of your surroundings. I coach people on a daily, weekly, monthly basis who are always a victim of their surroundings. It's because of this that I am this. It's because of that that I am that. But this person said that to me, so therefore I'm that. No, you create your surroundings. You are the person who's in charge of your surroundings. If you do not like your surroundings, change them. Do something different. You are responsible for that, not the people around you. They will turn up. The events will always turn up. It's how you react and respond as to the outcomes you're going to get. It's also not about acting in a way that's going to attract more fans on social media. So it's not putting out something that's so false. People will smell it, will see through that. We know when somebody's being false and they're not being authentic. And so being authentic to yourself really means that you behave and communicate in complete integrity with your beliefs and your values, and most of all, what feels right in your heart. It's so important. It's about not going against those, right? And when something goes against your values and your beliefs, that's when you struggle with it. That's when you struggle to get your head around it. And that's when you feel uncomfortable. And you might not even know why until you know, especially if you don't know your values and your beliefs. You'll struggle to know why you feel a bit like uncomfortable about it. So I just want to have a look now at all of those areas. So there is option for the workbook. I'm going to share that with you guys in the chat. I want you to have a look. You can download this workbook, by the way. This is the Empowering Communication workbook you'll use over the next 12 weeks, 11 weeks, where you can actually start diving in and filling something in, right? And filling them in to really get clear on who you are. Okay. So, like I said, it means that you behave and communicate with integrity with your beliefs. And most of all, what feels right in your heart. It's so important that we operate from that place. Okay, so let's dive in and have a look at you now, shall we? Have you ever felt that you act differently in different situations? So if you have a look at some of these pictures here that are coming up, some of them are social, some of them are work, some of them are relationships, and some of them are, might be at school or TAFE or uni. And sometimes when we get into these, or some people, maybe not myself right now, because I've learned the secret, is we communicate differently. We act differently in each situation. Remember, I said you assume a different identity based on where you are and what you're doing. Instead of being yourself, you feel like you've got to be something different to please other people, whether it be your boss, whether it be your partner, whether it be your teacher, whether it be your friends. And it's really not who you are. And so now that's what I say is you're putting your mask on. And it probably stops you from saying things that you want to say because you have a fear of how that other person's going to take it. It's really not your responsibility how somebody else takes your communication, unless, yes, of course, if you're being totally rude, then yeah, they might take it rudely, but then you need to explain yourself. But if you just communicate from a place of authenticity, honesty, integrity, vulnerability, then that person should take it the way it's meant. And if they don't, it means that there's something that's going on for them, not for you. Okay. And so what we're going to look at through the workbook is we're going to look at all the different places where it is that you wear a mask, but also list the places where you don't. But I want you to really get in, have a dive in and go, where is it that I am not my authentic self? Where am I not being true to who I am? Where am I not being true to my values, my beliefs? Is it my work? Is it my relationship with my husband, partner, wife? Is it my relationship with my boyfriend, girlfriend? Is it my relationship with my friends? Is it my relationship with my teacher? Is it my relationship with my acquaintances in my classroom? Is it my relationship with my parents or my direct family contacts? And if you find that you're wearing a mask in those situations, list them down, jot them down. And then over the course of the next 12 weeks, you're going to learn how you can actually deliver authentic communication in every situation. You can be yourself no matter what. And it's so important that we understand that we have to be ourselves. We have to be true to who we are. And we've got to learn to be able to communicate that to others, but also read and understand how other people are receiving our communication. Remember, there is no such thing as confrontation, and there is no such thing as a difficult conversation. It is just a conversation. And it's really important to take what you've learned out of tonight, and every one of you would have taken something different out of tonight. I know that. It's really important you take whatever you've learned out tonight, go and assess yourself in the workbook, and be true to where it is that you're wearing a mask. Because if you're not true, well, we can't help you. You're going to hide it. So you're going to keep lying to yourself, and that's okay with you. If you want to keep lying to yourself, I'm okay with that. It's got nothing to do with me. But the only way you're going to get some change in what you're doing is to really be authentic and honest to yourself in these situations. Because here's the thing, information alone is absolutely useless without action. So it's so important that you take what you've learned out of tonight and go and put it in to the workbook. And everyday situation, pick yourself up, check yourself, find out where it is that you're wearing your mask. We can change it when we know about it, but half the time we're just doing it subconsciously. We don't even know we're doing it. People don't even know how they're communicating half the time until I point it out. Even when people say to me, I'm not bad, Aaron, I go, okay, if you're not bad, what are you? Oh, yeah, I'm good. All right. Well, I'm not great. Okay, if you're not great, what are you? You're sort of saying you are great because remember, the brain doesn't pick up on the negative. So important you listen to how you're talking to yourself as well as how you're communicating to others. All right. So I said today, thank you very much for attending. Absolutely honored to be standing in front of you for the next 12 weeks, 11 weeks from tonight. And like I said, so important that you take what you've learned out of tonight and go and create some action with it. Go and create some change in your life because it's going to get uncomfortable. I know change is uncomfortable for most people, all right? But from uncomfortableness becomes change, and change becomes an awesome life. All right, so I want to see you next Thursday, same time, as we take a deep dive into NLP meta programs and disc profiles. Got any questions, please just hit me up by email, give me a call, and happy to answer any questions that you might have that came out of tonight. But thank you very much, honored, and I will see you next week.